Let's talk about debt, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about debt.
Well, I am so excited that you stopped by to have coffee today because I have had you on my list of people to bring in the studio and record with because I'm so fascinated by your story. And not just of your success story, but also the things that you're involved with, adoption, just everything about the way you live your life. So I'm excited for our audience to hear a little bit about what you've done previously, what you're doing now, and I'm super excited to share with them how they can get involved and speak with you more about what you're doing now. So first of all, I just want to welcome Kami Pentecost to the Life After Debt. Our kids go to the same school, but we had never really formally met until probably what?
Has it been we've met, but we didn't actually meet.
Right.
It's been less than a year.
Yeah, it's been less than a year. But it's interesting because I think that in the business world, especially strong female entrepreneurs, you recognize them. And so I've always recognized Kami from afar, just her work ethic, her hustle, the way she runs her family, the way she does business, but we never had a conversation. And then it's like, as soon as we talked, it was like, oh my gosh, she is like, thinks just like I do. She functions. And it was just a really cool synergy. And I know I have appreciated your friendship, just learning more about the way you function and do things. And so I am dying for our listeners to hear a little bit about how you got started, because you were in the same industry for 18 years. Is that right?
Yeah, almost 20 years. It's crazy to think of that because I was a school teacher. I always say in my previous life, I was a school teacher. And then when I started having my family, I was just realizing that I wasn't going to get to do things for my kids that I wanted to do for them, but also I wouldn't have the time freedom either. And so I started in business because it gave me the flexibility to prioritize my family, but it also gave me the finances I needed to do the things that we thought were important.
And just so our audience knows a little bit about what you did, I know you were involved with a multi-level marketing company, and you got in at a very ground level, or like, where would you say, how did you even enter that world?
So interesting. My parents got involved in multi-level marketing when I was in middle school. And so I'd always believed in the business model. I'd seen firsthand how it changed the financial trajectory of our family. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a school teacher, and there was really no way for him to get ahead. And it was through the vehicle of direct sales that he was able to do that. And I would say he was an entrepreneur, and I'm very much an entrepreneur. And so as much as I've always wanted to teach and coach, I wanted to be a mom more. And so that entrepreneur spirit in me was like, well, how do I do both? Right? Not like, can you be a mom or can you have a career?
Right.
I believe it's both.
Exactly.
And so it was kind of a fluke because I was looking at putting my kid in daycare, or I had to start generating some income. And so for a short time, I actually waitressed. I remember friends.
You did?
I did. I actually loved waitressing.
Wait, were you at Outback? I just have to know.
No.
Okay, good.
No, not Outback.
Okay.
A little Chinese restaurant, hole in the wall. And it's so funny because people I graduated with would see me working there and they were like, didn't you get a degree? And I was like, I did, but I'm kind of doing this business thing. And while I'm waiting for it to generate the kind of money that I need, I was doing that on the side.
You know, that's such a great topic, though, because I think for a lot of people, they think as soon as they launch something or they go out on their own that they should solely focus just on that. And I agree with you. I think, you know what, you have to do what you have to do to make ends meet while you're building, right?
Totally.
Your business or your line or whatever it is you're building, your income stream. And so many people, though, get hung up on, well, no, I'm 100% doing this, so I don't want anybody to see me doing anything else. And I love that about you because it says a lot about your spirit. Like, you were humble enough to say, I don't care what I have to do.
Well, I think people envision business being like this turnkey, and even traditional business is not turnkey, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, my dad used to say it's the big hat, no cattle syndrome. You know, a lot of times you have to do what others won't.
That's right.
So eventually you can have what others only wish they could have. And so, yes, I waitressed on the side while I was building my business. And I was fortunate. I got in the early stages. I wouldn't say the infancy stages because I think there's danger in that, especially in the world of direct sales. I think it has to be established enough where you know that they're going to be able to ship your products on time and you're going to get paid on time. But at the end of the day, you want to be kind of ahead of that curve before it becomes a household name to truly be able to maximize the timing.
Yeah.
And it is interesting because now that I'm in real estate, we always say location, location, location. And in multi-level, we would say it's about timing. And it is. But I think, at the end of the day, too, it's about a work ethic. And that is behind everything.
And I think that's probably the best gift you took from the last 18 years is your hustle has not changed. And I've even seen it with you pivoting over now in the real estate market. And so, one of the things that I want to talk about today, because I know so many of our listeners are getting their tax refund checks. And I always look at that as like, it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because they're either going to get it and they've already spent it, or they're going to pay down credit cards, which surprisingly, I wouldn't necessarily say is always the best idea. Or
I think that's interesting. I just want to say, I think I grew up in where it was like, why are you spending it? You need to pay off debt. But I like some of the outside of the box thinking that you're providing your listeners.
Yeah, because if you can take that money and generate wealth off of it to pay down your credit cards, then that may be a better option for you. And so what I mean by that is if you have an amount of money coming back to you in a tax refund, then reaching out to Kami and saying, hey, I've got, I'm getting a refund. How can I get in the real estate investment game, right? Because I think people's fear is that I could never do that. I could never, how do I even enter? But so many are looking at opportunities or looking at what's happening in the US right now. They're not making any more property.
Oh, no.
Once it's gone, it's gone. And so the more that you can get your hands on, regardless of what the interest rate is, because by the way, the home is still going up in value. You still have an appreciating asset. It counterbalances it. So if they're getting a tax refund, how do you suggest people look at their overall investment, home ownership? How should they approach it with you?
Well, it's so funny you're asking me this question because in my previous career, when we knew people were getting their income or their tax returns, we'd say, invest in a home-based business. And I don't know that the industry is the same as it was when I was getting involved in it. And I'm not saying, I still think betting on yourself is better every day of the week.
Yep.
But, if you don't own a home right now, I would say, why don't you use that? There are a lot of first-time homeowner things out there. If you talk to a licensed realtor, they're going to be able to tell you what's being offered in your area. I mean, I know it's different here in the state of Florida than it might be in the Midwest, but usually everybody has a first-time home buyer
program
of some sort.
Yeah. And FHA for first time is what, 3-4% down. So it's very little down to where you can enter the game.
Well, I think too many of us don't even get in the game because we think we can't.
Right.
But you don't know if you don't ask. I tell my kids all the time, the answer is always no if you don't ask. And so make an ask out of yourself.
So how do they? How do they say, okay, you know what? I'm sick and tired of renting. What's my first step?
Well, number one, contact your local real estate agent. They will connect you with a lender that will see what your reality is. I think sometimes we don't even know. You might say my credit score isn't good, or how do I know what that's where you find out all that information. And so if this is a season where you're going to get a tax return, instead of looking at how you can spend it, because quite frankly, I also heard all the time, I'm going to go on vacation, but what is that going to get you in the long run? And so if you can somehow take that and invest, let's say you don't even own, I love to say that you should love where you live. And that goes to both renters and homeowners. So first thing is if you do not own your home, that is the thing I would say is the first step, is to look at getting yourself in a place where you can purchase a home yourself. That's number one. And then on top of that is I would say, if you already own your own home, why not look at investing in a property? Airbnb is through the roof right now. I don't care where you live.
I've seen so many commercials too, like on Netflix for Airbnb, just the promo of passive income and being able to get in the game of passive income. And you're right. There's no better way. They'll do all the work for you.
Well, and so it's funny. I was just on a field trip with my kids yesterday, and one of the moms that was chaperoning with me said she doesn't even live in Tennessee anymore, but she still has a Airbnb in Tennessee. And she said it makes just a phenomenal cash flow for her. And that's what they're looking to do, is to take the money that they've got in that, to go ahead and put it into another one. And we happen to live in Florida. That doesn't mean if you don't live in Florida that, investing wherever you're at isn't a great opportunity. But for us here right now, not only is it a vacation spot, but we are growing before we can even put up more buildings.
Yeah.
And so whether people are vacationing or whether they are renting for part-time, being, a homeowner as an investor is an incredible investment for you to generate some income.
Yeah. And it's a long-term play. Number
Right.
one, I think what I'm hearing you say is make sure you own your own home first instead of renting, rather than throw your money away and rent. And while there's some areas in the United States, and I believe there are truly some areas to where renting may be a better option at this time. However, for those of you who have been renting for a while, you're tired of doing the same thing and seeing nothing, invest in your first home. It doesn't have to be your forever home either.
No. And, it's something I want to say about this is I do think renting serves a purpose in seasons of transition.
Yes.
Like I remember when I was first growing my original business, the home I could purchase when I was ready to buy a home was very different than even the home I could purchase 6 months down the road. And so maybe you don't know where you're going to be next. Maybe your kids you're becoming an empty nester and you don't know what that next season looks like. I think renting for a season is super smart when you're in transition. But I think outside of that, owning is going to be an investment in yourself, even if it's the long-term
Agree.
game. So
Totally agree.
Even with high interest rates,
Yeah.
I still believe hands down, it is better than just throwing your money at nothing.
Well, and let's talk to that though, Kami, because I think people immediately will say, well, interest rates are higher than they've ever been, but you can also buy down your rate.
Well,
And nobody says that.
Well, I think, listen, I think the number for like the last 30 years is actually 12%. So our interest rates high? No.
Yeah.
They're probably just higher than when they were 2-3%.
Right.
And those were unicorn years,
Right.
And again, I just think your money's still going towards something, not nothing. In business, when I was first starting in my direct sales business, we used to say you're either building your dream or you're building someone else's dream. And when you're renting, you're building someone else's dream. When you own, you're building your dream.
Yeah.
So,
and the interest that you're paying on your primary residence is tax deductible. So let's not forget, it's for nothing. Like, yes, the rates are higher, but the tax deduction that you get on your primary residence is still there for you.
Well, and you just never know when they're going to dip down low again. And so to just wait, you should love where you live.
Yeah.
And so, there are 5 times where people are going to be buying no matter what. I don't
Right.
care what the interest rates are. I don't care what's going, if people are having babies, if they're getting divorced, if they're getting married, if they're retiring. These are all reasons people are buying regardless. And so you shouldn't be uncomfortable because you're letting the interest rates dictate where you live.
Totally.
Instead, if you see a house and that's where you need to live and the interest rates aren't what you want them to be, buy, and then you can always
refinance down the road when you see the rates go back down, which is what so many investors actually do. They get in the game and then they renegotiate the terms of their loans as they're in it. When they see that the rates dip, they pull out equity, and then they do the game all over again.
Which is what this lady who had the house in Tennessee, she said, I've got so much equity that was built by the people that are renting her property that she can now do it again.
Yeah.
And so again, investing in something versus nothing, even if it's the long game. But we are in microwave society. We want instant gratification with little to no effort, but investing in something is better than investing in nothing.
And I want to say too, for those of you out there who are watching this and you think my credit is not where it needs to be to get into a home right now, or you may be looking at what you're spending in minimum payments every single month and say, if I weren't paying these minimum payments, I could actually afford a house payment, which that to me is like mind blowing.
Well, just like some of you don't even realize the car that you have. You put yourself in position, like
it's a depreciating asset, by the way.
Well, so it's a depreciating asset, but I was blown away when we were taking some of the math classes for our real estate license, and somebody that was willing to be in a $600 car payment a month was basically taking down $100,000 of what they could have in home buying power.
Well, because their debt to income ratios are out of whack.
Well, and so I just, again, don't do this alone. Don't make assumptions. Don't just listen to some numbers high level. Get your own information. Again, get with a licensed realtor, allow them to connect you with a lender, find out what your credit score is, find out where your money is going, and how with a few little tweaks, you could actually be having more house buying power, right?
Totally.
And then I don't know about you, but I would rather buy an older used vehicle and have a nicer home or be in an area that I want to be in than maybe driving this fancy car that is a depreciating value.
I know. I'm a car snob, so you can say it to me, but I appreciate a car.
Now.
But the truth is, you're right. And I think so many people start with the big car and they don't realize the ramifications on your credit when you're going to purchase a home. Because the biggest thing they look at when they're lending money is, what is the risk of this borrower? And if the debt to income ratios are not in alignment, then you're not going to qualify for a higher mortgage or a higher loan, or they're not going to lend to you based on your debt to income ratios. It's a huge piece of it.
Well, and sometimes I'm hearing a lot, oh, my credit is bad, so I can't buy a home. But here's what I want to say. Part of getting with a professional is a lot of times you don't even realize small little things you do can actually impact your buying power, and it has nothing to do with your credit score. And so sometimes if we just have the information, I believe knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, but even more is applied knowledge. And so it gives you put you in the driver's seat.
Totally.
To know how to make decisions that will position you for what you want to do.
People's biggest fear is having the conversation. They don't know what to even ask for. They know what they want. And it's interesting because on clarity calls, and I know this is the same with real estate because I used to be this person. Like, I look at everybody who own homes and think, I want to do that one day. But I wasn't really sure, like, why would I even have the conversation if I mentally am telling myself I'm not ready, I'm not ready. But it's actually having the conversation that gives you the tools necessary to prepare yourself to purchase a home. And so similar to our clarity calls, we actually do the real estate rundowns now. And I know that we use you a lot even for clients. And so I just want to encourage you guys that if you're watching this and you're like, okay, like, I don't even know really what I want to ask her, but I want to figure out how I can get a home or what I need to do to put in place to put myself in a position to buy. And it may be that you have to go in and clean up your credit first. We've got you covered. Or Kami may look and say, you know what, we've got to get your debt to income ratios, or you need a couple good trade lines to where you need to piggyback on a family member who's got great credit. That could increase your score. There are so many things that we could teach you and direct you around your debt, around your credit report, and most importantly, around getting in a position to purchase a home.
Well, and we can't empower you with these tools if we're not having that conversation. So I do love that you offer the clarity call. I think that's really important. And I tell people on a regular basis, whether you rent or buy, let's just have a conversation to see what are you in position for?
Yeah.
What do you want? And what are you in position for? Because this is where I say just, not having, well, you're saying not having the conversation, but I'm thinking to myself, we can come up with all these things in our head that might happen or could happen or is our reality. But until you have that conversation, you have no idea what the reality is.
It's true. One of the things I so admire about my son-in-law and my daughter Sable is Jordan and Sable are so good about, and they've done this since they got married. They will see an opportunity. They purchased their first home. It was being built. And then they watch the market. And as they watched the market and the appreciation and the sales in the area, they immediately knew the timing to put it up for sale when they would be making X amount in equity that they could then upgrade their living style to their next home and put that money into it when the market. And so it actually became almost like it's a game for them. And they already have marked, okay, now when it appreciates, I think about that and I think there is no other thing that you can invest in that's going to yield you the return.
That's right.
That's going to get you to the place, your dream home, faster than doing it that way.
Well, and I'm even thinking of some people right now that are like, Kami and Amber, I'm not like you. Yeah. I'm not an entrepreneur. Your home is an asset that can help you make money all the time.
Totally.
So when I grew up, I think my parents moved anywhere from every 4 to 7 years, And even though their monthly payment was the same because they made sure it was, they were able to take what they had in equity and put it into the next house. And sometimes they took what they had in equity and they bought an investment and another house. So sometimes it's not even about buying a bigger house.
That's
Sometimes it's about using the equity. So now I can live, but now I start having this second property that I'm investing in as well. So, and it be your forever, breed that kind of return, like moving on a regular basis.
Yeah, and that's an interesting topic too, because I think you and I are in the same seasons. We have kids going off to college. You know, it's just a different season, and we may not need what we had or what we thought we wanted.
Correct.
I know I experienced that a year ago, and this for me has been so eye-opening because I actually went from what I thought was my dream home to where I love where I live now. I love my community. It's completely different from where I was. But I think for so many people, they think they have to stay put in one place. But now we're utilizing that property to generate wealth, which is great, right?
Well, or go bigger.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm in a season of my life where I'm like, simplify. And so I think it's interesting too, because a lot of times we feel like we need to keep going bigger. And I've done that to myself twice. I've built twice, and both times I built so big that I was like, what am I thinking? Because even the amount of headspace required in a home that was bigger. Yes.
It's a lot.
And so I'm in a season where I'm like, okay, how do I simplify and yet still have what we need as a family? Because then it's that mental space even that we can invest in other things.
It's so good.
Even if you're not an entrepreneur, but you just want to make sound investment decisions, the home in which you live in is an investment.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And you know what? Come to think of it, Kami, I think maybe we have it all wrong. Anybody who owns a home, they're taking a risk.
Right.
They are an entrepreneur.
True story.
Just
True
home
story.
ownership makes them an entrepreneur, which I've never thought about until just now.
Well, and yet it's a risk, but it's one of the safest risks I've ever seen.
Totally.
So, especially if you do it right. I think sometimes what I loved about going into real estate is I just learned so much that it's funny. I would have thought I can sell my house by owner. I would have thought I can buy by owner, but there's just so much stuff constantly evolving. I mean, heck, it's an election year too. I mean, there's just so many variables happening. It is worth getting a professional and partnering with a professional to make sure this will be the biggest investment financial decision most of us ever make in our whole life. You want to make sure you're doing it well.
And I want to say this too. She doesn't even know I'm about to say this, but you know, this is like a new field for you. And I've watched you throw yourself into it and the passion behind it. And I think that to me is what's so impressive is that you did this huge pivot. You made millions with one company, creating it, building your downline, and then you pivoted over and you saw an opportunity. And you were like, all right, I'm going all in. I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to get licensed. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to set up the same system of making X amount of calls. I mean, I've watched you do it. So I know that it doesn't mean it's easy, guys. And even purchasing your home, we're not here to say it's easy. There may be work involved, but the end result and watching like, all right, now you've made this full swing. You are so passionate about home ownership and investment properties. And that's what you're telling people right now. And so if you could just see the power in where she was and where she's going and the lives that she's impacting with helping them get in their first home and how rewarding it is for you. It's got to be rewarding.
Oh, well, it's new, it's different. And it's so interesting because if I would have let the comfort of where I was before keep me where I was, I don't think that I would have a path to be on the right path to go where I want to go next. And, you know, I am in a different season of life. I have 2 going off to college. I have 3 still in the home. And yet I have a real heart for fostering and adopting. And I really pray that now in doing real estate, I'm not traveling like I was. And so it's afforded me the ability to start spending my time in other spaces as well. And I don't even know what that looks like. By the way, this has done a real work on my ego because my ego really liked where I was, but learning something new will put you in a very humble position.
True.
So I'm nowhere near where I want to be yet. Thank you for all the nice comments. But I always used to say, even what I was doing, being a beginner, being willing to recreate yourself, it puts you in position to really maximize wherever you're at. And so I definitely am in a new space. I will say the world is evolving. It's such a pace.
Things are changing.
But land isn't changing.
Yeah.
What is changing is the amount of land available
Totally.
is changing. But, you know, Amazon hasn't got their claws into real estate yet.
That's right.
And so definitely a different avenue that I want to invest in. I mean, I'm only 40 something. I didn't even remember how old I was.
You're young. It's
I
okay.
did text my mom and say, how old am I again today? I feel like if I'm going to make another run, I want to make sure the product that I'm making a run with is one in which I believe is only becoming more scarce.
Mhm.
And it's something I'm not as knowledgeable now as I hope to be and plan to be, but I'm excited that you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And, you know, it's important for people to know too, that it doesn't cost anything to have a conversation with you.
Right.
You know, you're not hiring a realtor. They're only paid if they find you exactly what you want and help you through the process. And so it's similar to people, you know, well, how much does it cost to work with you? Most people don't even know that.
Well, I always say, especially on the side of being a realtor, I win when you win. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting you in a position to win and love where you live, or what you're investing in. But, you know, listen, things are always changing. Everything is negotiable, but I would say sometimes you get what you pay for. So if you're really trying to short-sight it,
true.
Don't be shocked if you get like do you want the concierge level or do you want like just barely enough to get by level? But you don't want to do this alone. Like I said, for many of you, this will be the biggest financial investment you ever make. I would not ever do that by myself.
And I want to speak to that because I actually have a personal story about choosing the wrong agent.
Okay.
And what it can do to your situation. And I think the biggest thing I want to speak to is that it is so important the person you get to represent your property because they're going to attract the buyer.
Mm.
And so the way that they carry themselves, the conversation, their ability to have conversations depending on what you're looking to accomplish and what house you want to sell, it really does matter.
It does.
If you get the wrong agent who cannot speak to those people with a level of confidence, they are never going to deliver what you want. I promise you that. I've watched it happen in my own life. And so I just want to speak to that. I think, you know, it's so easy to just grab a friend who's in the real estate, you know, game and have them because they'll represent you. But the truth is that you better look deeper. You better look at the way they hustle. You better look at the way they communicate and articulate themselves and their ability to have a conversation with anyone. And very few realtors can do that, by the way.
Well, and it's so funny because I also think, do you want somebody with little to no experience or somebody that you think is a household name and they would be epic because they've been doing this for years? You said, do they hustle? My question is, are they hungry?
Yeah.
Because I think their level of hunger is as important as anything else because again, and one of the things, I'll use this as an example, is when someone comes in and say, what's your rate? I'm like, well, what kind of level of service would you like? But if I'm super quick to lower my rate, how quick will I be to not negotiate what you deserve for your property? And so you want to feel confident with the person that is negotiating on your behalf as well. And there's a lot behind that that you need to understand. And it really comes with a team with a wealth of knowledge. So,
So Kami, I think that you have definitely shared so much valuable information with our listeners too, just about investing, about having a conversation. It's that simple. Find out where you are, where you want to be, and you can help them get there.
There's one thing so this is interesting, you guys, because I definitely came through life under the Dave Ramsey umbrella of
you did say that
stewarding
word.
money.
Yeah. Which is good.
Literally, when you said we're going to talk about tax returns and what you get, and the first thing that came out of your mouth was not something, because again, my mindset is under that that doesn't mean the mindset I think you should follow. That means that is my muscle memory. That doesn't make it the right thing. And one of the things I admire is how outside of the box. So again, are you going to sit here and disqualify yourself from being someone who can own or being someone who can invest or start your own business because you have too much debt? She said something that my mind wasn't even thinking of. And I was like, that's why I'm not in debt consolidation. That's not my skill set. That's not my wheelhouse. And I like your outside the box thinking. Instead of thinking like, oh, I got to pay down debt. Oh, how unsexy is I get this great tax return and I got to put it all towards that. I'm not saying you might not do that. Have the call with her. But what I like is she's like, how do we make your money work for you?
Right.
So you can also be increasing your wealth and getting your debt consolidated all at the same time.
Yeah.
sometimes I think people are like, well, are you going to be a career woman or a mom?
Right.
No. How do I do both?
Right.
Let's think outside the box and let's flip that script.
Right.
So yes, I need to get rid of my debt. Yes, that is very important. I don't just want to build debt. So I'm not saying just go on that vacation and keep building debt. I'm saying, how can you think about debt consolidation and building income as well?
Yeah, it's such a great point. When I talk about money with people, I always say in finance, there's two ways to change your situation: stop spending or make more money. Like, it's that simple.
Right.
And so it's the combo of the two that's going to change everything for you. So it's like, slow down your spending, but you've got to learn to get your money to start working for you. And that's what real estate's going to do.
Yeah.
So I know that hopefully we'll absolutely have some great conversations around this with listeners. And I just want to say, I have to say that, I have always been under the impression that multi-level marketing, like I always say, even to friends, I've said, well, you're not an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
You work for a company, you're getting a paycheck. But Kami, you are truly somebody who, you are a true entrepreneur. Like, you've walked away and immediately hustled into something else. And I so admire you for that. I have a lot of respect for that, because in the past I would always say, now watch, all these multi-level marketers, that's what they did. That's all they knew. And unfortunately, that's what they were told. They're entrepreneurs. Now sit. Like, now what do I do? So for anybody who's listening that you've been in the MLM game, I also want to tell you what Kami is doing is not just selling homes. She's building a network of realtors to come on board with her. And so if that's you and you're wondering, where's my place now? My company's going out of business, or I don't know what to do now, and this is my world, this is all I knew to do, reach out to her.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. So what's the best way they can get in contact with you if they want to chat with you just about, like, hey, I used to be in the MLM world and I'm having a hard time navigating, or what to do next? What opportunities do you have? How can they get in contact with you? What's the best way?
I would say shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram. You can get me on both of those, but you could also go to kamipentecost.com and there is a contact space there. And so you can input your information and I'll get in touch with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. And until next time, if you need anything in between, visit our website, reducemydebts.com. You can book a clarity call, and you can also book a real estate rundown and speak with one of our representatives. So, all right, bye.